Hey everybody, it's Dana. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and blog. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of coloring with this adorable stamp set from Pretty Pink Posh. This is Pumpkin Patch Critters. A lot of P's going on there. And as soon as I saw this stamp set, I knew I had to have it and color it up. So let's go ahead and get started. Now I'm going to use a MISTI for this because I want to make sure that I stamp these images pretty good on a first try. So I'm going to go ahead and put some Copic Express paper. Now anytime I use Copic markers, this happens to be my favorite paper when I'm doing so. I know I don't do a lot of coloring in my videos with Copic markers, but I really wanted to just share this one with you guys on how I blend my colors when I just don't have the perfect color that I need. So I have everything lined up in my mini MISTI, and I'm just giving myself a little bit of wiggle room around each one because I need to fussy cut these out a little bit later. I did not purchase the dies with this, so I am going to have to do a little bit of fussy cutting. So for my ink today, I'm using Memento TUXEDO black ink. Now there are lots and lots of inks on the market that are great for Copic coloring. This ink pad just happens to always sit in my desk drawer. So between that and my ink on 3 ink, that's the black ink I usually use the most when I'm coloring. So I'm just going to go ahead and press that down. I'm pressing pretty firm because I want to just make sure that I have all the lines really crisp and I'll be able to color with no problems. So like I said today, I'm going to be using Copic markers. Now, I will say I get a little bit nervous when I color live with Copic markers for some reason, but I think I need to just go ahead and get over that. So let's go ahead and get started with the coloring. First, I'm coming in with a pretty yellow shade. Now, to me, anytime I see a pumpkin, I always feel like it has a yellowish undertone. So anytime I'm coloring pumpkins, I always throw in some yellow. Now, when I am Copic coloring, I always have the need to lay down a base layer of color. That to me just kind of makes my Copics blend a little bit easier for me, and as well as using the right paper. And in my opinion, for my Copic coloring, I have to have the Copic Express paper. Next, I'm going to come in with an orange color. Now, I will have all of these colors listed over on my blog, and all of the ink colors I use today will be listed on my blog. So next, I'm coming in with that YR07. And I'm just going around the edge, right on the line of that pumpkin, because I want my pumpkin to look like it has some roundness to it. I don't want it to look flat. I want it to look like it has a little bit of dimension. So I'm just coloring right along those guidelines, as I call them. And I'm coming right down that. Now, some of my lines are a little bit thicker, some are a little thinner, and that's okay. Now, I don't have the right orange, so I'm going to use the tip-to-tip method. Now, here I'm using the orange to the yellow, and I'm grabbing that color and bringing it in. Now, another way to do this is to do the reverse and use the yellow brush tip against the orange bullet tip. And this is going to give me more of a yellow tone. That's the color I want for this pumpkin. I don't want all my pumpkins to be the same, so I am going to add a little bit more yellow to this one. So I'm just using that tip to tip, and this is a perfect way to get a Copic color that you might not have already. I don't have every single marker, and I've been doing this since 2009. I do have most of them, but sometimes I just don't have the right color I'm looking for. And using this tip to tip will gladly and evenly give you more color variations that you can really think of without having to have every single Copic marker. I'm just bringing that color all the way around. And again, I'm just using that tip to tip. Now, you don't have to worry about this damaging your markers. All you have to do is take the marker and scratch it off on a piece of scratch paper, and you'll be absolutely fine. Your markers will not be damaged by this process. And like I said, it gives you more color variations doing this tip to tip. Now, every color that you blend together is not going to be the right color combination, so keep that in mind. You may end up putting in two colors that just do not work harmoniously together. So just make sure to look at a color wheel for reference. And that would help you to determine what colors go together well and which ones are going to turn into like a muddy brown color. Okay, so now I'm finishing up this little pumpkin, just adding in a couple more flicks of color. And this really does give this depth. But I do want to add one more color, and this is a darker orange color. This is going to make my image look rounder, fuller, more dimensional. Now, you can do this if you don't want to do it with Copic markers. You can do this with color pencils as well. You can always mix your mediums. So don't be afraid to do that. Explore your craft products and learn them. Okay, so now see how it looks more rounder with that image instead of flat. So I'm just coming right back in with that medium orange color and just blurring out that line a little bit. Now, this is usually how I always color an image, is using several ink colors. I just, for some reason, don't like an image to look flat. So I just prefer to grab a couple Copic markers and then go for it. Using that yellow as my last bit of touch, I'm just blending out that orange I laid down. And that's basically how I color images to give them a little bit more depth and a little bit more light. Okay, so I went ahead and I sped this up because obviously you've already seen how I've done this technique. Now for this one here, I just went right in with the tip to tip and then went back in and did the darker colors. So you can color any way that makes you happy. Just make sure that when you do color, you want to make sure that you're using your mediums correctly. Now, I do apologize for the lighting right now because I am working with full daylight today. I don't have my lights on in my room, so every time it goes dark in the video, that means a cloud has come over my house, and I totally apologize for this. Okay, so now since all of my pumpkins are colored, I'm going to go in and color in my critters. Now for these critters, because I think they're just too stinking adorable, I did use 3 to 2 colors on each one of them. And like I said, I'll have all the colors listed over on my blog. So go ahead and make sure to check that out today. And I'm just, again, using those depths and shadows in certain areas just so it can give my image a little bit more fullness instead of a flat color wash. Now this is easily achievable even if you're watercoloring or if you're using a different kind of marker instead of Copic markers. You can always achieve this same look. So I'm just going in behind that pumpkin and adding in some darkness because if the pumpkin's sitting in front of the little fox, it's going to cast a shadow. Now, again, I'm not an expert on Copic markers. However, I do like coloring. So I try, and I've been doing this now for, since 2009, I think I've been using Copic markers. I try to always make sure that I color to the point that I like it. Remember, anytime you're doing something, do it for the for the enjoyment, not for the lack of, oh my God, I don't think I'm going to color as good as somebody else. Remember, this is your crafting journey. Nobody else is. So just learn your craft, be happy with your results. And if you're not happy, just keep practicing. Eventually you'll get there. I'm still learning Copic markers as well as other color mediums. And if you keep doing that, you will master it. And then you'll be more happy with your results. Okay, so all of my images are now colored up with some rosy little cheeks. And now I did not purchase the matching die cuts for this. So I'm going to go ahead and take my little images and I'm doing a little bit of old school here. I'm just going to fussy cut these things out. Now will say fussy cutting is not for everybody. You have to be a little bit patient with doing this and use a good pair of scissors. The best tip I can tell you is to move your paper, not your scissors. That's the easiest way to fussy cut anything, is keep your scissors parallel to your paper and move your paper. This way you have less of a chance of nicking into areas that you do not want to cut. All right, now all of our images are colored and they're super, super sweet, and they are now ready to go onto a card. So there's our three little critters all colored up. Now I want to make a really nice background for this. So I'm using the Mod Stripe stencil from Simon Says Stamp, and I'm using some micropore tape. Now this is going to allow me to place down that stencil without having that typical white border around. Usually when we're stenciling, we can't always get all the way to the edge because sometimes our tape is in the way. So I made sure to tape this on the back and lay my stencil on top of that tape. All right, so for the colors, I'm using Gina K inks today. These inks I've had for a while and I don't get a chance to use them as much as I want to. So today's card is perfect for it. I'm also using a makeup brush. Now, if you guys missed my review on this makeup brush to blend inks, I will link it up here in the corner, and I'll also link it down below in my description box. So I'm coming in, I believe this color is called Sweet Corn, and I'm lightly just going in circles onto my stencil. Now, the reason I purchased this stencil, to me, it just seems very, very retro, and I love that feel. So I thought that this would be perfect in a couple fall colors to work with our little critters today. So to clean off the brush, all you have to do is go back and forth over a piece of paper, and that gets that color off of that brush. Next, I'm going to come in with Sweet Mango. Now, again, I'll have everything listed in case I'm making a mistake in the colors. They'll be over on my blog. Now, I'm just coming in and putting a little bit of that Sweet Mango along the side of that yellow. I just want to have a pretty color combination on here just to have something for my card to pop, but not overwhelm the little critters that I'm going to have on there. I'm blending in from the corners in just a very light motion. I don't want to put too much of this color down, but I just want enough that there's a color variation between the orangey of this mango color and then the red orange of this tomato soup color. So that's the last color I'm using. And again, I'm just swiping off, dabbing onto that scratch piece of paper just to make sure that is the color I want to use. And now I'm going to come right back in and do a little bit more blending. Now this color is really going to pop and work perfectly with those other two colors I have. Have fun, you guys, with any of the ink cubes that you have or the products that you have in your craft room. That's what you purchased them for. Don't let them sit there and not be loved on. Make sure you pull those old supplies out, or even the new supplies you have that you haven't had a chance to really use, and have fun with them. All right, so I'm just going to add a little bit more of that color right to the edges, just so I have that great gradation of color. All right, now that looks pretty good, but I do want to come back in with that yellow. So I'm going to clean off my brush. Again, I just need to swipe it on the paper to get the residue off. And then I can come back in with that yellow. The yellow just seemed to fade out a little bit too much for me, so I want to add that back in. So again, I'm just dabbing a little color, grabbing it on my makeup brush, and this is the part I love, reveal time. So I gently just need to pull off that stencil, and look how gorgeous this background is. I highly suggest if you want a really pretty background, you really need to have this stencil. All right, now since we have our background done and it looks fantastic, we can go ahead and start building up the card. So as you can see, my critters are going to look so cute on that card, but I do want to make sure that I add a sentiment. So I'm just kind of lining them up to see exactly where I want them, and I think that layout is perfect. I do want to add a sentiment, so I'm going to pick the sentiment that comes with this stamp set. This sentiment says, Autumn Greetings, and I do want to heat emboss that on some black cardstock. I typically go with black cardstock when I do heat embossing on any type of card. So for some reason, I really like the black combination. So I'm going to use it here today. So I use my powder bag, and that's the anti-static tool to keep away all the frays of my embossing powder. Next, I'm coming in with my Ink on 3 Juicy Ink. This is an ink I gravitate to constantly when I'm doing any kind of embossing. I'll go ahead and press that down very gently because I don't want my image to smear. And then I'm going to come in with some Arctic White embossing powder. This again is from Ink on 3, and you've seen me use this in a couple of videos. It is now my go-to when it comes to heat embossing. It's a very, very bright white embossing powder, and I really love it. Now, I should have used a piece of paper behind this, but I didn't because I was just too in a hurry to get this done. And now I'm going to grab a paintbrush just to get off some of those extra pieces of embossing powder just wanted to linger behind. Now I can go ahead and heat set this. And then our card is almost going to be done. If you guys have any time saw me heat emboss, I like to heat emboss from the back and the front of the paper. It kind of melts it better and it makes it easier. All right, so now we have that, and I don't want this sentiment strip to be too big. So I'm going to grab my Fiskars cutter, and I'm just going to trim this down. Now, I have seen a lot of people, as soon as they get their stamp sets, they stamp out their sentiment on black cardstock, so they're already ready to go when they make cards. And I think I'm going to pick that little tip up and do that as well. So I don't have to always wait to stamp out a sentiment. I already have it ready to put on a card. I'm just lining that up and making sure I just don't cut off too much of this sentiment, and then we'll have to end up starting all over again. So I can just trim that down, and now I'm ready to finish building up my card. Okay, so our little critters are done and everybody looks happy, and I really love that pop of black against all those fall colors. All right, to build up my card, I'm just going to grab my ATG gun. This is an adhesive I use 99% of the time on my cards, and I'm going to place that panel right below my little critters. Now just line that up and press that down. Now I'm going to use a white card base. I always use Neenah Solar White card bases. That's just like my go-to. But before I do that, I just need to trim off that little excess that was hanging over. All right, now on my critters, I want my critters to pop. So I'm going to take my middle one and pop this up. But then for the other two, I don't really necessarily have to have them popped up. So I'm just going to grab my Nuvo Deluxe Adhesive, and I'm going to put those down flat on my card. So just that my center image is going to pop up. I just need to make sure I get them where I want them and just space them out. Now I like using images 3 to a card. For me, just odd numbers look really good on cards. So that's why I ended up deciding to color 3 of these images instead of just 1 or 2 of them. Now, since I have my little fox in place, he looks perfect on my card, I can go ahead and put down the little bunny. Now, all the products will be linked below as well as over on my blog, so you guys can check that out. I do use affiliate links, but they're no cost to you. They just help me if I get a little bit of commission to continuously purchase new products so I can share them with you guys. All right, so now I can go ahead and put that little guy, my adorable little squirrel, right in the middle of these 2 images. Now, if you want to know more about anything else that you've seen in this video, make sure to leave a comment below. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have, or maybe if you have any suggestions that you want to know something more, just let me know. Now, to finish off this card, I did want to add something along that strip. To me, just leaving that left-hand corner, I felt I needed to add something to that. First, I'm going to go ahead and place my card panel down. Now, I always use Neenah's Solar White 110-pound cardstock for my card bases. This is my go-to for my card bases because it's relatively inexpensive and you can really get a good weight to your cards, especially if you're layering them with multiple things. You don't want your card base to be flimsy because otherwise it won't stand up correctly. Now I can go ahead and place that down. And we pretty much have this card done. Now, like I said, I just felt like that left-hand side was just a little bit too bare for me. And then I realized that I did not cut my panel in the beginning down correctly. So I'm just going to trim that with my scissors just so I have a straight edge. All right, that looks so much better now. Okay, so I'm going to grab myself a few enamel dots because, like I said, I just need that little corner to be filled. So these are some, I believe they were doodle bugs. I'm not quite sure if they're still available. If they are, I will link them below for you guys. And that's going to finish off our card today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. Please feel free, if you like this video, to give me a thumbs up. Make sure to hit the bell and subscribe as well. I will see you guys in another video soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.